All right, this is the follow-up with Branford Marsalis. We are following up on a video, on a live video I did a couple weeks ago about Bring On the Night. And Branford Marsalis was kind enough to uh, answer a couple questions um, concerning the impact of that particular project. Branford, thanks again for making the time. I very much appreciate it, and I know that the audience out there appreciates it as well. There were a lot of people writing in while I did the live video about this particular project and how much it meant to them and how much it influenced them. So thanks again for taking the time. In that vein, let me just give you my analysis about um, Bring On the Night. And that was that all of a sudden, after this movie came out, it had become more usual for especially black jazz musicians to uh, become sidemen in a pop setting. Up until that time, even though it did happen. Up until that time, there seemed to be more of a separation of the genres, of the styles, and especially of the workload. Um, what are your thoughts on the continuing impact of the project, what sideman work is concerned?
Yeah, I never even thought of it in those terms
Right.
because Sting, when I was approached uh, through a guy named Victor Garbarini, and I met with Sting, and he said, Omar Hakim is set.
Right.
If you have any ideas about piano and bass, and I said, yeah, Kenny Kirkland and Daryl Jones will be great,
Right.
because Daryl, plays bass foundationally. He's a
Right.
great keeper, not really constantly waiting for a time to insert runs and all of this stuff that is so prevalent at that time. And Sting had auditions, and he wound up picking those two guys. And said,
Right. 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 Right.
you in the first place. So I'm like, no, man, it's your band. It's Sting's band, and
Right.
I would like to think that Sting hired us because he thought we were the best people to do the job for his
Right.
music.
Right.
There were a lot of people. You have to understand that the society 32 years ago. I mean, like Donald Trump is 74, I think,
Right.
and he won the presidency very narrowly, running on a campaign of racial resentment.
Yes.
Whereas 30 years ago, he was in his 40s,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
and there were a lot more people who shared his sentiment at
Right.
that. So uh, I heard a lot of things about that record. I read one article and it said something like Sting with Negroes, black people tried to turn it into some kind of plantation, black
Mm.
Americans.
Mm.
Uh, because of my personality, I mean, it didn't really affect me.
Right.
I'm just lucky enough to be one of those people who's not swayed by the opinions of people who don't know anything about music,
Right.
who are essentially strangers to me.
Right.
I uh, I thought of it more like Benny Goodman hiring Teddy Wilson and Lionel Hampton in 1939. It was one of the first big stars to show up at Carnegie Hall with an integrated band.
Right.
And a lot of people made a big deal about that. Oh, Benny Goodman's great. He hired black people. But then as I started to become more understanding in the language of jazz, I realized that what Benny Goodman was doing was much hipper. He was just hiring the people that he thought would best interpret the music and elevate
Right.
music and put him in a place where he was forced to play differently.
Right.
And if they happen to be black, okay, great.
Right.
And I think that in Sting's situation, it was more about that. It was hiring people who could interpret his music in a way that he had not traditionally heard it.
Right.
It
Right.
wasn't just, find the five best brown people,
Right.
and we worked really well as a unit,
Yeah. That's noticeable. Yeah. Absolutely.
because of the musicianship.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a conversation with uh, with someone who saw the band live, the Blue Turtles band, and I asked them the same question. You know, was that did the idea of jazz musicians, black or otherwise, all of a sudden playing with a pop act, was that, you know, a selling point for you guys to go to the concert and all that? And needless to say, not at all. As it is for them, they wanted to hear the music. They wanted it. It did not, you know, it didn't really translate. So that particular part of it didn't really translate. And it's quite possible, and I do say that in the live video, that that whole idea of black jazz musicians all of a sudden playing with this white pop star, you know, that so-called controversy, or I hope I'm pronouncing this right.
That's the
Um,
British way. It's fine.
you know, uh, might have very well been a marketing ploy. Let's not forget
No,
that.
what it is it is everybody, meaning the majority of everybody. I don't
Right.
know everyone in the world. Okay, but large numbers of people react to things based on whatever the social sensibilities are at the time.
That's correct.
And many times these social rules are very tacitly understood. They are
Right.
not discussed. They are not written down.
Right.
There was just this thing, like if you, there was a question asked in this Chuck Berry documentary, Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
And I think that it was intended to be uh, a bunch of rockers, you know, Keith Richards and Eric Clapton and some other guys.
Steve Jordan on drums and all of that.
Let's do this thing and dedicate it. And I don't think that they were ready for the vitriol that they
Mm.
experienced from the black musicians at that time.
Oh wow.
And they said something like, you know, I don't remember I'm paraphrasing here completely,
Yeah.
but it was
Yeah. Yeah.
similar to what Elvis was doing was essentially the same thing that uh, Little Richard was doing.
Right.
So how can one be called rock and roll and the other one be called rhythm and blues?
Right. Right.
So, and they let him say it in the documentary, but nobody tried to explain. Just because we're going to dance past this shit and keep going, you know. And Chuck was really bitter about the way he was treated and how his, you know, music was used. And
Right.
but you can you either benefit from or you are a victim of the social sensibilities at the time.
Right. Right.
So I think that a lot of that controversy that you called it was genuine among some of the people who were appalled at the idea of a hero like Sting playing with a bunch of black guys.
Yeah.
But I still don't think that they were even remotely the majority of anything because
Right.
whatever controversy they tried to establish, it died away fairly quickly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the thing. If you just do things, some people would be outraged.
Yeah.
If it's not in the end not really outrageous, life just moves forward.
Right.
You
Right.
know, many kudos to Sting for just picking the guys and the gals that he wanted
Yeah.
and moving on with it.
Yeah. Yeah. He seemed to. That seems to be a very. I mean, I don't know him personally, obviously, but that seems to be a character trait of his, to kind of be able to put blinders on, have like a very singular goal ahead of him, and just follow it through.
Right,
You know, of course, that is a fantastic uh, that is a fantastic characteristic to have.
right.
And I'm not using the word fantastic in terms of it just not being real. That's a great
Oh,
characteristic to
I know
have.
what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You know, it's a. I mean, he's one of the few. I mean, he works hard.
yeah.
I don't mean he works a lot. He works at it hard.
Right.
He
Right.
takes lessons. He does all of these things.
Yeah.
Uh, there are very few people his age. You know, he's either at or close to 70
Right.
that can sing songs in the same key that they sung it in when they were in their 20s.
Right. Right.
He works at it.
Yeah.
You know, he's a hard worker. Uh, where other musicians that have that kind of success tend to like, hang out with models and go
Right.
chill for 2 years and live in the beautiful. I mean, he does all of those things too, but he still works at his craft,
Right.
and
Right.
I commend him for that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Most definitely. Most definitely. There was, my introduction to the movie and to the project was not via the movie. I did not see it in the theaters. I did see posters and screenshots that were hanging outside of a movie theater, of one particular movie theater in Vienna. Um, and those images just had a profound impact on me. They moved me not only emotionally, but maybe even more so from an understanding point of view. That here you have these musicians that are conversing with what I understand to be a rock star on, perhaps equal terms or even on an even playing field, and therefore being a sideman, being a side musician is a possibility, and that influenced me greatly. I am a sideman. I wanted to be a sideman, so in that regard, um, I am working on that, and I continue to work on that.
Right,
That is something that had a tremendous impact on me. And then, of course, it was totally legitimized once I saw the movie and the way that all of you carried yourselves, the answers that you gave to the questions that were being asked. The I can't come up with a better word than seriousness,
right,
that 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 you brought to the project. Um, had a deep impact on me because it legitimized my yearnings.
right.
It legitimized, like, this is something that I can do, right? Um, it was it has always been part of the narrative that in order to do this gig, you have to be open, right? You have to have an open mind, and
Hmm.
you have to be open. Your consciousness needs to be open. Your influences, everything needs to be open. Therefore, I wanted to ask you the question: what does it mean for you to be open and to have an open mind?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer
Yeah.
because I mean, me playing jazz and playing a gig with Sting, and people would say, "Oh man, you have a really open mind. You're really open. That's great."
Right.
There's never any expectation that a successful popular singer should sing Broadway or
Mm-hmm.
sing opera or sing jazz or sing anything other than what they do, because what they do is so immensely popular, and people who live in any country in the world always want to believe that they are right at the point of hipness, the point of this.
Right. Right.
And the more popular the music is, everybody, when you have 5 million people buying a record and you have 70,000 people or 25,000 people in the room, they are all going to believe that this is like the greatest moment this week or the greatest moment this year,
Right.
and they are buoyed by those numbers. So I remember when I kind of cajoled and then had my dad, and we strong armed Winton into joining our R&B band in the 70s,
Right.
and we had a great time. But that was never really Winton's strong suit.
Right.
And playing popular music was never his thing. Now, conversely, uh, our other trumpet player, John Roche, he was born to do that.
Right.
He was a natural, and Winton learned a lot from being around John.
Right.
And John was continually amazed just being around Winton. We still talk about it. I mean, John lives in Seattle now, but we go
Mm.
back to those days. It's like, man, I never heard a trumpet played like that before. I couldn't believe the shit he did. And
Mm.
like, there was no, and there's a lot of people who criticize my brother for not being a fan of popular music.
Okay.
There's almost no one who would criticize a popular performer for being critical of opera,
Right. Right.
critical of jazz. I mean, I remember once that, yeah, I feel comfortable in saying this, that uh, Ringo Starr once said, like, jazz sounds like a bunch of cats scratching on a hot tin roof. And I didn't hear anybody say, "Oh, you're so snobbish, and how can you
Right.
say such a thing?" I laughed. It was kind of funny.
Right. Right.
To me, I
Right.
heard, I said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, it can be like that." But But you know, it's like, I never once made a record saying, "Oh my God, I hope Ringo likes this." So
Yeah.
it didn't. Some people are overly sensitive
Right.
because you are in a certain kind of musical minority, and I think that the people in a musical minority or a literary minority always quietly hope that one day the majority would, like, spit on them or acknowledge them in some kind of way.
Right.
Where, because my dad played jazz and I grew up listening to pop music and playing popular music and decided to play jazz, I went in with my eyes open and I didn't expect nor desire any kind of,
Right.
oh man, jazz is great. No, y'all don't like it. It's fine. It's cool. You
Right.
don't have to like it.
Right.
So
Right.
but there's always this idea that anybody that is critical of pop music is a snob or
Right.
an elitist.
Right.
And I see it from both sides.
Right.
I see
Right.
it from both sides. I see people in popular music say things that are incredibly ignorant about other forms of music.
Right.
And no one takes offense to that because that's the majority
Right.
culture.
Right. Right.
So uh, I just, I never thought of myself as having an open mind. In comparison to other people, sure, yeah, my mind is incredibly open.
Right.
But I played in youth orchestra because I liked it. I played it keyboards in a top 40 band and
Right.
saxophone in an R&B band because I liked it.
Right.
That was the goal at the time. And
Right.
then when I started hearing jazz, then I started liking that and I moved over to that. But it was never, and I'm good at it. So
Right.
when I play with the Grateful Dead, I mean, it's not just this jazz guy. I know how to play music in the style that they're playing
Right. Right.
much better than they could ever play in the style that we play.
Right.
And I think people were amazed because a lot of jazz guys go up there and just do jazz crap,
Right.
playing patterns and scales. And, it's like G7, bro, is G7.
Right.
I mean, I guess, yeah, theoretically, you can just play a Mixolydian scale on a G7, but do you really want to do that shit? Is that your solution to the problem? I mean, you got and you got like 75 years of music with people teaching you this is how you play on a G7 song.
Right. Right. Right.
You
Right.
use
Right.
space, you use blue notes, you use ideas, you react to the surroundings.
Right.
But you have these kind of jazz players. I call them improvisers. They're not really jazz players. These improvisers, and they're so keen on structure. And
Mm.
all of their conversations are conversations about structure.
Right.
Their way of
Right.
playing is structural. And the simpler the music gets, the worse that stuff sounds.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
then they start saying, "Well, that stuff's too simple for me." I'm like, "Well, there's another definition for that. But I'll let you have that."
Right.
So
Right.
so
Right.
I
Right.
never really thought of it as being, I guess, compared to other people, like I said, it's open-minded. But it was never a thing that there was never like a thing. I really want to be open-minded when I get older. I just wanted to play the music that I like to play, and then I
Yeah.
want liking a lot more music
Yeah.
than normal people do, and I just kept checking it out and stealing from other people and doing it.
It seems to me as if like the idea of having an open mind is very often associated with um, the outside influences, meaning
Right.
that having an open mind to what is coming in from the outside. But listening to you right now, um, you could also make a definition or come up with a definition of like having an open mind really means being open to yourself
Well,
and
just
understanding very clearly what it is that you like and what it is what makes you tick and
yeah.
being open to that. So in other words, as opposed to outside influences coming in, inside influences, meaning your own soul, your own being, basically,
Well,
and
no,
being in
because
tune with that.
if that was the case, then we would not, we would have been, music ready at 7 or 8 or 9 because we
Okay.
have the same soul as we had then. So no,
Yes.
outside influences come in. But that's all I do is listen to music.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, when I do these jazz master classes and they start talking harmony, I'm like, bro, wrong guy.
Mm. Mm,
Let's
mm,
talk
mm, mm.
records.
Mm, mm, mm,
But
mm, mm.
you have to grow into this understanding is that you allow all these things in,
Right.
everything. You allow it all in,
Right.
which means that you can't analyze it.
Right.
You just have to listen to it,
Right.
and you can't listen to it with preconditions.
Right.
So, sometimes you see something on YouTube, someone will post a solo or a song and then say, like, at 2 minutes and 37 seconds,
Mm.
this.
Mm.
So if you have a song that's 5 minutes long, the only good thing is at 2 minutes and 37 seconds.
Mm.
That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard.
Mm.
But what it is that if you are not allowing things in, then you're going to gravitate to things that already sound like you sound.
Right.
You're going to gravitate towards things that are already within the sphere. So the moment you hear something that is associated with your limited approach to music, you go, that's the thing.
Right.
Because it kind of, what's the right word? Validation is not the right word, but it kind of, uh, yeah, I guess it is the right word.
It
It's
it valid it validates
it
your own
confirms, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
confirms your natural preference.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But when you think about it philosophically, if you have a 7 minute songs, everything that preceded it is building to that moment that you like.
Right.
It's in your best interest to learn all of it,
Yeah,
as
yeah. This
opposed
is
to grab that snippet of a thing
right.
and learn it in 12 keys and then make your vocabulary not really conversational. It's almost like trying to learn how to speak a language. Like, say I wanted to learn, Austrian German, which
Hmm.
is different than German. So
I'm
what I
I'm
would
I'm
do,
very thankful
I
that
know
you
you,
know that.
yes, I do. Yes. It sounds different. The words are different. I got it. I get it. So say you want to learn Austrian German. So instead, I'm just going to get a bunch of quotes
Right.
and just say them, And then
Right.
by the third quote, they're like, "Yeah, you don't really speak this language, do you?"
Yeah.
Because there's a flow to a language.
Right.
There's a rhythm to a language.
Yeah.
So you have to learn the flow from listening to the language being used. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to take these phrases." Like take something like, an old phrase in America
Right.
is from the 20s. They say, "Oh, I'm history, boys." It means I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to go to France and say, "Alors, je suis histoire." How are you history?
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't take
Makes
this
makes no
phrase.
sense. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, music is the same way. You take
Right.
these things, you yank them out of a solo,
Yeah.
and you learn them 12, the same thing 12 times,
Right.
when in reality, you're almost never going to play in these other keys anyway.
Right.
But you learn this thing, and then you just turn it into a phrase
Right.
or a quote. So the solo never has any kind of momentum.
Right.
It's just a series of quotes jumping all
Quotes.
over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I try to avoid all that kind of stuff. I allow everything to come
Just.
in. And there's certain things that I never think I'll be able to use.
Mm.
And then something shows up and I'm like, oh shit, I can use that thing that I learned
Mm.
20 years ago.
Mm.
It's not a conversation, it's just a reaction.
Right.
You have all these sounds in your head and then you're
Right.
playing a certain style of music. I have this library full of stuff from listening to that sound
Right.
that I can use.
Right.
So I don't really have a one size fits all approach.
Right.
So in comparison to the people that have a one size fits all approach, yeah, I guess I do have an open mind, but I don't think of it as that. I
Right.
just think I'm curious.
Right, right, right. There is the moment in Bring on the Night in the movie and in the live recording during Burn for You. Obviously, there's the in the movie
Right.
there's the great drum solo, right?
Yeah, man, Omar
And
killed.
Omar always kills it.
Mhm.
Let me just state that because I
Yeah,
am a fan
yeah,
and in terms of excellence, unbelievable,
yeah.
unbelievable, consistent excellence, like unbelievable.
Right.
Um, so in the there are two different versions that happen in the movie. There's the big drum solo. In on the live record, it's not necessarily a solo as much as for lack of better description, communal
Yeah,
movement, right?
it's part of the conversation.
Exactly. And there is a lot of back and forth between you and Omar,
Right.
and that very often gets overlooked in my opinion because people immediately go to the drum solo. Yet what we just talked about, if you immediately go to the drum solo, you're getting this much of the entire picture, what the song is concerned, of how it builds to that particular moment, and you're hardly getting enough of the conversation that is happening between
Right.
saxophone and drums,
Right.
either preceding or at the same time. I don't
Right.
remember, the
Well, it's
exact.
on the in the movie. This was at the beginning of everything.
Okay.
The record is at the end of everything. So
Oh
we had
wow.
actually developed a language as a group,
Oh, check that out.
and
Oh, okay.
it's the whole thing because there's that line, da-dum, bum, ba-da-dum, da-dum, da-ding, dee-dum.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's part of it. So the drum solo is based on that.
Right, right.
Da-dum, dum, da-dum. It's just not like, oh, free, play whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
I was doing that Wayne Shorter thing where you just play notes. Wham,
Right,
and Omar would play this thing. And so we were bouncing back and forth because we had developed this language that
right,
was very, very flexible because Sting allowed it to be, which
right,
was awesome of him.
right.
It's kind of like watching you know watching football, meaning European football, not American football.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
same thing. It's
You
like
have
you have 11 people on the side and you turn around. The camera follows the ball.
right. I understand.
There's all I know you understand. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
there's all this other shit going on the field. Like this is why you go to games. Like they're it's especially in a game like football where you're playing for one goal
Mm,
and you're setting up this goal for 15 minutes, for 20 minutes, looking at the defense, trying things, setting up, trying to get
mm,
to the right. And people who play football really well, and some of the people I hung around
mm.
would explain to me, oh yeah, they're trying to do this. It'll come eventually. But that
Right.
guy over there, they notice that guy, they're testing the guys to see who's fast and who's not fast,
Oh wow.
who
Yeah.
can cut, who can't cut. Like
Right.
there's a whole conversation.
Right.
But even in American football, we're so used to following the ball.
Right.
And in music, we're so used to following the singer
Right.
or we're following the solo.
Right.
All of the things that make that work, we don't pay attention to that stuff.
Mm. Mm, 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 mm.
We don't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
the thing you're talking about, uh, regrettably, a lot of musicians don't hear that well
Mm.
to get the thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a very distinct buildup that happens before the
Right.
actual solo happens,
Right.
and there is within that buildup there is a conversation that happens between saxophone and drums,
Right.
and that is I for the life of me I could never understand why people talked about. First of all, I got the two versions confused, right,
Right.
between the movie and the live recording, and I could never understand what people are talking about, the drum solo, drum solo. Yeah, I'm a fan. Like I'm sold. Omar is a great musician. He's kind of
Right.
awesome, right?
Right.
So I would never take anything from him or his, perception of him. Nevertheless, I could not understand why people were not paying attention to the conversation that was happening, right? And
I,
that kind of, sorry, go ahead.
I differentiate between instrumentalists and musicians.
Mm,
Like a lot of saxophone players are really great saxophone players. They're just not
mm,
very good musicians.
mm, mm.
And
That's pretty deep, yeah.
and great drummers, and they hear, Omar and go, oh my God, did you hear that drum solo? And that's the only part they hear. But that's the
Right.
essential weakness in how they play.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
and and when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about this like I'm on this perch saying I can hear and you guys can't. Hearing is an acquired skill.
Yeah.
It is not a natural skill.
Yeah.
And a lot of musicians who don't hear well would talk to me and say, "Oh, you're lucky. You were blessed with that." Well, I could have. Well, why couldn't I hear it when I was 10?
Mm,
But
mm.
when I would listen to records, for whatever the reason, I never tried to analyze the records.
Right.
I never tried to figure out what it was because in my mind, what it is what it is.
Right. Right.
It's the sound.
Right.
If you really think about it, I mean, especially since you're Austrian, I mean, Jimi Hendrix and Wolfgang Mozart have one thing in common. They
Sounds.
use the same system,
Mm,
same 12 notes.
mm, 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 mm.
So if the playing is about the notes, then Hendrix could have picked up a guitar and wailed on some Mozart without thinking about it, and vice versa.
Right.
But it would never work because the thing that's great in music is sound.
Right.
Music system is one of the simplest systems ever devised.
Mm,
You have a 1 in 12 chance of being right. every time you play.
Right, right.
Good odds.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Good odds.
Most
But
definitely.
but when music becomes a conversation about structure and form, there's a limit to how musical it can be.
Right.
Because what makes music magic is how it sounds. What makes a person cry in the audience is how it sounds, how
Right.
it feels when they hear it,
Yeah.
not what they know.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And did you like
It's
that song? Oh, when you played that super locrian scale, it was just so emotional. It's not a conversation you're ever going to hear. You know,
no.
when people talk about how music makes them feel, they can't even articulate
Yeah.
what it is. That's
Yeah.
the magic in music.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you have the power to create an emotional template that affects people, and they're affected,
Yeah.
but they don't know why they're affected. They
Yeah.
just are. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like when we play well, we're like musicians,
Right.
you
Right.
know? Like if we just went on the stage and gave them no information and said, okay, here's a happy song. And if it sounds happy, they're like, oh my God, how'd you do that?
Right.
You know, then
Right.
oh, what's this song about? It's about being happy. Okay,
Yeah.
this song's about being sad. Oh, it feels so emotional too. It's like that's the thing that always excited me about
Right.
music.
Right. 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 Right.
So
As
because my brain works that way, what you're talking about
mm,
is the relationship between all the musicians. It's a group conversation.
yeah.
It's not your turn, then my turn, then his turn, then her turn. It's our turn.
Yeah. No, it definitely it became communal, and also, again, kudos to Sting for putting this particular group of musicians together, um, that managed to become communal,
And
because
he
there's
allowing it to happen.
allowing that to happen. There's a
Allowed
lot
it
of
to happen. He could
there's
have.
a
Yeah.
exactly there's a lot of oversight that goes on before, not in terms of control, but in terms of bird's eye view,
Right.
right? Of being able to sort of project into the future and say, well, I think I don't know this, but I think these personalities worked well together, right? Or it might not even be something that he necessarily consciously thought about. I mean, who am I to say? I certainly don't know that, but he had a way of putting this group together, and I think also consequently other groups after you guys, where all of a sudden there was a communal language that was being developed, and that was very very noticeable. Listen, the very very last moment, the very last question that I wanted to ask you, because and that this is incredibly nerdy, um but your sound on the soprano sax
Yeah.
always knocks me out.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. How did that come about?
Um. Listening at first, listening to Wayne Shorter.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
like Wayne Shorter, Grover Washington Jr. as a kid,
Yeah.
17, and then eventually Sidney Bechet
Yeah.
creeped in there.
Yeah.
I played clarinet as a 7-year-old. Played for 7 years.
Right.
Uh, so I already had the sound of this woody instrument in my ear when I
Right.
started playing the clarinet, and then I realized I mean the soprano, and I realized real quick that I could actually make it sound like a clarinet.
Oh wow.
What a lot of jazz musicians, I can say with a high degree of confidence that they spent most of their time listening to John Coltrane as a
Right.
soprano saxophonist. So it's this very bright kind of tinny,
Right.
whiny sound.
Right.
uh, Coltrane treated the soprano as an extension of the tenor. He ran out of room, so he grabbed the soprano. So he could.
Right.
Wayne Shorter, how he played the soprano was very different than how he played the tenor.
Mm.
And that was the thing that kind of attracted me to him, that he treated them like two separate instruments,
Right. Right.
and they are. And so I was always really heavily influenced by Wayne and Grover.
Mm.
And at that time with Sting's band, it was a lot of Wayne because the chord structures and the way that Sting constructed those songs reminded me a lot of the way that Wayne Shorter played with Weather Report. So
Right.
he was kind of like my I never template. He was my
Right.
template for that. He was my role model for that setup.
Right. Right.
So because a lot of it is if you listen to jazz a lot, we tend to play through everything.
Right.
we play, everything is 16th notes and runs.
Right.
Whereas if Sting is singing,
Yeah,
the
it's
runs
easier.
aren't going to work. So now it's call and response,
Yeah.
call and response, call and response. And Wayne was and is the master
Right.
of call and response. And he plays, he gets out of the way and allows things to come in.
Yeah.
Whereas when you are knowledgeable, you don't get out of the way. You are always in the way, playing
Right.
as much as you can. So Wayne was the guy for me.
Mm.
Wayne at that time, Wayne and Grover.
Yeah, yeah, that's just something that has always fascinated me about the sound of the project, of the album and the movie, because it was so noticeable that this soprano sax, it was clearly a soprano sax. It was more mellow than any other soprano sax that I had heard before. Um, it was its own thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
check out Wayne with Weather Report, man.
Oh
That's
yeah. Oh
sound.
yeah. Yeah. Most
That's
definitely.
that's where I got it from. I mean, that's
Mm.
really
Mm,
such
mm,
a
mm, mm.
warm, beautiful sound, especially the music in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Most
stuff in the
definitely.
70s. Like most people, when you say Weather Report, they start with heavy weather and work up.
Mm.
But I'm talking about like, I Sing the Body Electric and,
Right.
you know,
Miroslav
Live in
Ito's still
Tokyo,
on bass.
Kuroslav on bass, yeah,
Um,
Mysterious Traveler back then.
Ayeto. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am familiar with those.
yeah,
It's no
cool,
doubt about that.
cool
No
shit.
doubt. Well, listen, Branford, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure,
I
Joy.
really this has been a great conversation, a great follow up
Thank you, man.
to to the
Thank you for
video.
asking. I appreciate it.
Yes, no, this has been, once we established the communication, I was like, man, should I ask him, should I not? But then I thought, well, fuck it, let me just
There you
put
go.
it out there.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
fucking pandemic, man. I'm glad to be doing something.
hey. No, and you have to understand, like, the minute I put that particular topic out there, people were definitely, there were a lot of people during the live video commenting on it, because clearly the music touched so many people, right? And has had an incredible impact, right? So to hear it now from you, who
Well,
was there,
it's
who
great to think
created it.
about, because to be honest, man, when you're 25, you're not thinking about any of that.
Yeah, of
You're
course.
just 25 going, wow, is this shit really happening? It's,
Mm, mm,
look at all these people out here. Oh my God. I mean, it's just, we would just, let's make music. We talked a lot about the music during the process and the rehearsals.
yeah,
And
yeah,
after that, it's just time to play
right.
and just surviving the tour and going to the next town. And you know what that thing is, man, being on the road.
Oh yeah,
So there was definitely not, I mean, in hindsight now, I mean, it was great. It was a
right,
great experience. But, at 25, it was just an experience.
right, right. It's almost too many things passing
If,
by
you-
you.
if I had been able to convince myself that this was the last gig I was ever going to get, then I would have looked at it through a different lens.
Mm, mm, mm,
But
mm, mm.
yeah, I'm grateful to my man. Stingo was amazing. It was a great time. I learned a
Right,
lot.
right, 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 right. Well, we continue to learn a lot from what you put out and what you continue to put out. I also tried to make a point during the live video that you guys had a very healthy workload before, during, and after. Like,
Right.
you put your albums out, you put the album out with Winton and Kenny Kirkland. Everyone in the band was incredibly prolific, and once again, that influenced a lot of people, myself included. That was just something, like, I in the research of this live video, I found out that Omar Hakim recorded Brothers in Arms,
Yeah.
which blew my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, first album I got late to.
Right.
You
There you
know what
go.
I mean?
Yeah.
What
That's
the
a good one.
hell,
That's
This-
a good one.
so just blew my mind that I had never made the connection, right? Um, so all of that definitely just influenced people, and it went beyond the music. It was more than that. And I want to thank you once again for all of that, and I want to thank you for taking the time today. um this means the world to me, and I know that there are a lot of people out there who loved hearing from you. So many thanks.
Thank you, my brother. I'll
You
talk to you
got it.
soon. Take
All
care.
right, take
Okay.
it easy.
Peace.